Now then, every year, around 8,000 people or more are seriously injured by landmines. Around 2,000 more are killed. Many of those casualties just children, many of them also people hurt or killed by mines from wars, not even still being fought. The mines just discovered weeks, months or even years after the conflict has ended. Well, this week in fact, the UN is marking its International Mine Awareness Day by advancing protection, peace and development. And with me here on set is the head of advocacy at Handicap International, and Héry. Thanks so much for coming in and talking to us. I mean, it's another big day to mark this problem. It's a problem which has been going on for years, and it feels like the media has been talking about it for years. What difference do you think can a day like this actually make?
Days like this are tremendously important. Handicap International, well, our new name is Humanity and Inclusion. We have been working on the field for people and communities affected by landmines and explosive remnants of war and conflicts all over the world. And we are a founding member of ICBL, International Campaign to Ban Landmines. This campaign has been awarded the Nobel Prize for its engagement for the Convention to Ban Landmines, which was adopted 20 years ago. So it's very important to recall that this convention has had a tremendous impact on reducing the threat posed to civilians by landmines and explosive remnant of wars.
So it's helped, but as you say, I mean, we're still getting all these numbers of casualties despite that, aren't we?
Yes, but it's important to note that for 15 years, the number of casualties caused by landmines have been decreasing continuously. But in the last 2 years, we are witnessing an appalling increase in the number of casualties. That's what you mentioned. And also another very appalling figures is the fact that more and more civilians are killed by explosive weapons because conflicts tend to more and more being fought in cities and with intensive bombing, which caused a lot of civilian casualties. In 2016, 30,000 people, civilians, were killed by explosive weapons, including, of course, explosive remnants of wars. So this convention on the landmine and this international day shows that things can be done, things can have an impact, but the mobilization has to continue.
You mentioned that increase. I mean, why has that happened? Has that happened because of new conflicts like Syria and Yemen, for example?
Yes, of course. Syria, Yemen, but also Libya, Ukraine, Iraq are countries where civilians are increasingly being killed by explosive weapons. It can be during ongoing conflicts, but also, as you mentioned, years after the conflicts have ended.
How do you get that message across to people? I mean, you mentioned Ukraine there, for example. I mean, how on earth can you get a message like you're trying to get over today to people in Ukraine who may be burying landmines? Because presumably that's the last thing on their mind is whether in 20 years' time a child is going to step on it or whatever.
Yes, of course. So this is why it's very important for us to raise awareness among the public, to raise awareness among the media, and to raise awareness to put pressure on states. So that's why we are calling on people to sign a petition to stop bombing civilians. It's a very important campaign that we are launching, hoping to induce the state to end the use of explosive weapons in populated areas, because 90% of the casualties of explosive weapons used in populated areas are civilians. So this petition can be found on the stopbombingcivilians.org website, and our objective is to raise 1 million signatures to put pressure on states to act and to commit to end the suffering of human civilians.
And there are other places as well which have been affected recently. I mean, there's Burma, there's North Korea, there's Mali, there's all sorts of different regions. I mean, the ones you mentioned before are kind of the obvious places, aren't they, where there are wars that everybody talks about all the time, but there's other places as well.
Yes, because as you know, as you mentioned, once these weapons have been used, you have landmines, you have also explosive remnants of wars. More and more you have what we call improvised explosive devices, which are not manufactured landmines, but improvised engines aimed to kill civilians, and their functionment is exactly the same as landmines. So it's very important for NGOs like Handicap International, Humanity and Inclusion on the field to raise awareness also of the communities around by what we call mine risk education, to clear also the lands to make sure that the threat is decreasing. And also, of course, a very important thing is to continue to provide assistance to victims, access to health services, access to education, access to employment to allow their full participation into society. And this is one of our key actions on the field.
Okay, and Héry, thanks very much for coming in and talking to us today. International Landmine Day. It's tomorrow, actually, UN Landmine Day. So do watch out for more coverage of that. I'm sure you'll see it in the media as well. Thanks very much, Anne Héry, coming in to talk